gentlemen, welcome back to TLT Talks. We have a very exciting show for you today, a very exciting guest, someone that's become truly a dear friend, part of our team, nearly 4 decades in the industry, over $1 billion of real estate rentals and sales sold. This guy has launched over 20 buildings in his career between rentals and sales. He's built some of his own buildings. He's got a formal background in commercial appraisals. I can go over and over more and more on this. Every time Instagram with getting the guest on. Let's go. Mr. Stephen McArdle will be joining us just 1 second. Bam, here we go.
There he is.
What's up, Cap?
Hey now.
How's it going?
How are you, man?
How is it going, sir?
Oh, it's fantastic, man. How are you?
Doing excellent. I was just singing your praises about your nearly 4 decades of real estate experience, the buildings you sold, the development stuff, the commercial appraiser stuff.
I do have a request. If you could tone that down to like 30, 35 years, I would feel really better about myself. Thank you very much.
Well, my friend, I could talk for ages about you. We met just a few short years ago, and it feels like I've known you my whole life. I love our work together. I feel like you're a brother. It's really special. So I could spend the 30 minutes of the whole show just ranting about you, but why don't you take a few minutes, introduce yourself to our audience,
Awesome.
Let them know who you are,
Well,
what you
I
are.
should take a couple of more minutes to get some better lighting is the first thing I should do. All right. No, really, thank you very much, Eugene. I've been around, in many aspects of this business. So I've had a real privilege of seeing. I've been in appraisals. I've been in development. I've been in sales. I've owned my own business. I work alongside of you, which is actually currently the greatest joy of my career. Right, to be on your team in the role I have with the incredible assortment, a collection of talent that you've actually assembled is like a real privilege, man. So
Thank you, man.
I am proud to be head of rentals for the Litvak team. That is for sure.
Love it. Okay, well, as you know, we love to have fun on this team. Why don't you share a fun fact with our audience about yourself?
Absolutely. I have the best weekend of the year coming up. So about 24 years ago, a dear friend of mine and my brother's died of adult onset leukemia. Gary Larson is his name. And he was just a magical, inspirational guy, right? And he left a wife and 2 young kids. And like my brother had this thought of like, what are we going to do to honor this guy, right? Like what can we do? And we were young. There were 5 young knuckleheads 24 years ago had this idea of creating a foundation or something to honor this guy with, right? So fast forward 24 years, we are a thriving foundation that primary purpose is to raise money for kids with cancer, right? And there's some amazing foundations out there that are pouring money into research and really going for the long game and solving a lot of the problems that make a massive difference in people's lives. And that's not what we do. We're a frontline organization. Like we give money to campgrounds that only have kids with cancer, so you can have your machines hooked up to you and still be a kid, or, whether it be Make-A-Wish or Ronald McDonald House or whatever it is. And this weekend is our annual fundraising event. So
Nice.
It's awesome. My boys come in from all over the country. We got friends coming in from other countries. So it's like, it's a celebration of not only Gary's life, but our life, right? Like how often, and you and I talk about this all the time, about how easy it is to lose one's, like the ability to be present in one's life and like to be grateful for what we have today, you and your wife and kids, or me. Like it's so easy in the world. Like we put a lot of hours in a week, so it's easy to get lost in all that. But to really have it brought home and to be present about why we're here and what really matters. So I got the best weekend in the world coming, man.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, I see when I raise you. For those that may find yourselves in a karaoke room with this guy, oh my God, did he do it his way? Frank Sinatra, Stephen McArdle, my way, absolutely legendary.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I'm glad
legendary.
there's no videos. As long as there's no videos, man, I'm all still have hopes of being a senator someday, you know? So.
Well, when I say we know how to have fun, I'm not lying. I'm not lying. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, there is a ton of confusion out there about this new regulation, this new law called the FAIR Act. Actually, we just had our annual team event, and when I was speaking to the room, it was just over 100 people, and I asked by show of hands, who knows that there's such a thing that just got passed called the FAIR Act, and it was less than half the room that raised their hand. So there was this monumental shift in the industry, and it's supposedly for the consumer, and yet the consumer has very little knowledge of it, or probably more accurately said, even less accurate knowledge of it. So the FAIR Act, the stigma out there is the FAIR Act. No more broker fees. Woohoo! No more fees.
Yes. I had heard something about this. Yeah, exactly, right?
So we're here today to debunk and clarify what's accurate about what's being said, what's not accurate.
Yeah. Awesome.
And so, Stephen, let's just start from the beginning. Maybe educate 100%. Us on what is, in fact, the FAIR Act.
Yeah. So the FAIR Act is actually an acronym for the Fairness in Apartment Rentals Expenses Act, right? So FARE. So that's what the FAIR Act actually stands for. So it went into effect on June 11th. And in its simplest form and in its simplest terms, what it says is that whoever you have to get your commission from, by law, from who you represent. So if you represent the listing side, if you represent the landlord or the owner, you have to get paid from them. If you're representing the tenant, then you have to get paid from the tenant or the renter, right? So no more is there like the renters paying their own broker and the listing side. Like those days are gone. You get paid from who you represent, period, end of sentence.
Right. Yeah, perfect. Exactly. So it's not to say there's no more fees. It's to say whoever hires the broker to represent them, that's the person who's going to pay the fee, and solely for that representation. So cool. So at a high level, that's what that means. Who and how has this impacted? Like who primarily has this impacted?
Yeah, I mean there are different degrees of impact for different people and asset classes, right? So for like the bigger buildings that were always paying the OP, virtually no difference, right? So like they're still paying the OP and so on and so forth. It's really impacted the individual owners, right? So people with a smaller portfolio or maybe a walk up in Upper East Side or Brooklyn or whatever the case might be that were very accustomed to having the renter pay their fee, that's shifted for them big time, right? So in rent stabilized buildings, you know, I'm hearing some impact there, but again, like what it really has impacted is impacted the smaller landlords and the renter themselves, right? Like in just what the process is like. So to answer your question specifically, how is it? I think the biggest impact right now is on renters. You know, I don't think it's costing the owners. I don't think it's taken away from their bottom line is the initial, you know, reaction and data that we're seeing.
Right. And so that's with the adjustment, which is what we'll talk about. And so there's essentially a couple different types of asset classes. So as you say, the bigger buildings, they're accustomed to paying the broker fees, and they're doing that for the purpose of keeping their rents high and their rentals high. So they're accustomed to that. The individual owners, you know, like some of them might own, I mean, the smaller portfolios certainly. And then in addition to that, there's the individual owners, right? There's somebody that owns a condo or owns a co-op, and they're choosing to rent it out, and the market's been hot for a long time. And so they're saying, hey, Mr. Broker, I'm going to give you my listing. You go rent the apartment. And those brokers are typically collecting the commission from the tenants. And so those owners now have to participate in paying that broker because whoever hires the broker. The rent stabilized buildings, that's an interesting asset class because it's been about 4 years now. I forget the exact year where all the increases on the rent stabilization got removed. So there's a whole bunch of investors that bought up these rent stabilized products thinking they could improve the building, get all these increases, and they can get those. But at minimum, those rents are so attractive, they don't have to pay the broker. And now those people, all those portfolios, now the broker is to be paid by the listing side. And essentially, those are all the impacts. And as you say, one of the greatest implications is to the tenant. So how does this impact the tenant?
Well, and from the positive side, right? So like now by law, all fees associated with the rental have to be disclosed publicly and actually presented to the renter prior to the execution of the lease, right? So all the fees that may or may have been hidden or not fully, not that they weren't talked about, but they certainly weren't highlighted, right? It could be it could be everything from move-in fees or deposits or the gym fee or the pet fee. Like all fees now must be disclosed prior to the execution of a lease, which is awesome, right? So like I love that. I love that transparency, right? So
for sure.
So that's absolutely a positive. The actual effect though is there were literally over 1,000 units came off of public Street Easy in particular, right? So like there was this delisting of a tremendous amount of units, right? So what we're hearing in real time out there is that inventory is down dramatically. There's this quote unquote like shadow listings, like owners are keeping things off the market so they don't have to pay the broker side fee and things like that. So the immediate impact is scarcity for a tenant, right? There was a great article in the New York Times last week about this, and Real Estate Board of New York has great data. Many people have great data, and they specifically cite Compass, our firm we work with, is there was between a 10 and 12% increase on all rents in June, right? That is 5x, 5x, 500% more of an increase than the average of the last 5 Junes period, right? So you're seeing this swell of pricing, right? So that, I think the intention, and we'll get into intention, but like I think that the renters were actually thinking that would be immediately in their best interest when in fact it's not, right? So inventory is down, pricing is up, and we're in peak season, right? I mean, honestly, it could not have happened for a worse time for a renter, right? Maybe they could have worked out the kinks over the winter, or if they would have chose, but they picked the peak summer months to get this done, right? So, and they're being affected. Many people scrambling to find places and paying more when they do.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's where, to clarify, that's where when Steven's saying the impact on the landlords are minimal. There was also article some quote you were mentioning, no free lunch or something.
Well, I mean, I don't want to get the quote wrong. I'll actually read it. So Street Easy, who is a proponent of the law, right? And they published the report about 3-4 weeks ago, like a month after, maybe not a couple of weeks ago, saying there really was no measurable impact on the FAIR Act. And when the New York Times interviewed him last week, they interviewed the chief economist, who literally said, quote, there are no free lunches. Landlords will always try to offset the additional cost by passing some of it to the renters as a higher base rent. They ain't running a charity, right? So even with the best intention, I mean, we live in a free market society. Like there's going to be there's a reaction to every action, right? So the owners are reacting by, if they got to pay a brokerage fee, they're taking the opportunity to increase rents and covering that, right? So it's just it is what is happening.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And so, I wonder.
Actually, there's one other stat I want to share with you to speak to the lack of inventory. Gary Mallon, CEO of Corcoran, their rental listings in June were down, according to him, 27%. 27%. I mean, that is dramatic. Right. So that'll give you some context.
It's an absolute game changer for everybody involved. And so, this is the third or fourth time the lawmakers pass laws that are supposedly supposed to be for the consumer, and they're just not. They're just anti-consumer. I remember this is also going back maybe 5 or 6 years, where they passed all these laws about application fees. There could be no application fees, $20 max to run a credit. And the smoking gun at the time was some Fifth Avenue or Park Avenue co-op that had application fees in the amount of like $7,000. And so that was a smoking gun. Yeah. How can we expect a New York City resident to pay X amount of dollars on the rent, and then between rent, security, yada, yada, upfront cash has to be this. So no more application fees, no more monies up front, extra monies up front, which eliminated a whole bunch of people from being able to rent in New York City
Yep.
altogether. Anyone with no credit,
Yep.
anybody that doesn't,
Internationals.
internationals, everyone.
Yep.
So, okay, so you eliminated opportunity for most people. And then in the end, what was really interesting about that entire law, the application process changed for rentals, and the smoking gun was a co-op. And the applications did not change. Nothing about co-ops or condos were touched. So the smoking gun were co-op application fees and condo application fees, which, by the way, as a tenant, that's your option. Don't rent in that particular apartment. And those fees are high because they don't want you renting the building. They don't want that building rent. So there is a capitalistic and a Darwinistic thing that happens in New York City. And businesses are allowed to run how they see fit. For then, if the barrier for entry is higher, that's by design. But I remember all those laws. Then there was the rent stabilization laws that got passed, which also the secondary, or forget about good or bad, the secondary order of consequence. There are thousands of apartments now in New York City that the landlords are just not renting, just not renovating. They're uninhabitable. They don't want to invest the money to rent them because they're going to lose money on them. So again, you've created these laws that now hurt inventory. Now there's less. We've already got a problem with inventory in the city, and now there's going to be even less inventory. And now there's this new set of laws about these fees. First of all, if the goal is transparency, which I think any real estate company, whether it's a team, like a Litvak team, or a brand or a brokerage like a Compass or Cork, whatever, I think anyone that's in this for the right reasons, to treat this like a business, to treat this like a value add, to be of service, cares about transparency. No one's trying to lie intentionally. So this element of transparency is great. But now you've got this whole consumer base that either A, doesn't know this law got passed, or B, thinks it means no more broker fees, which couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
And then C, I think this no free lunch thing is kind of perfect. This was so predictable. It was so predictable that if you put a fee on the owner, they're just going to raise rents. So I'm curious with these lawmakers, not that there's an answer for this, but I'm just curious with these lawmakers, like, are you at all interviewing the brokerage community, the experts in the field for what's inevitably going to occur? And actually that day, StreetEasy put out a data point that within 24 hours, this is part of my notes in the speech I gave at our event, within 24 hours of this law going into passing, over 1,000 listings got removed from StreetEasy. And there was an average of 15 across all listings. There was an average of a 15% increase within 24 hours.
Right.
If you speak to any broker with a half a brain, they would have told you, if you make the owner pay the fee, they're just going to put it in the rent. Like if you make rent stabilized people pay the fee and they can't afford it, they're just going to remove the listings from online and they're going to give the listings to their supers to show or whatever. And so this was also predictable.
I mean, we're back in the 90s, right? But I do want to say to that point though, like our industry is not without some ownership here. Right? So like, I talk about I mentioned reaction to reactions. Like there was a frustration. There was there was and it was more than a perception, right? I mean, I have 4 boys. My son had to pay $8,000 for a broker fee, right? I mean, there was real impact, right? But what seems to me was it was a reaction to renters not seeing the value in what brokers were doing for them, right? So I think that's a big part of this, right? Because there's not a doubt in my mind the lawmakers had good intent. Like, they're elected to be at the service of the electorate, right? So, and they see it as this is a problem. They're overpaying. They don't see the value, and so on and so forth. And I think we have to own a piece of that as an industry. We don't have the best reputation for transparency. We don't have the best reputation necessarily from anything. There's already been since this went into effect. There's been 653 complaints to the Workers' Protection Agency, right? So like, it's not something that lives in a bubble, right? So which really made me think about, we started this by who I am and where I am at and why I'm happy where I'm at. Like I'm so proud of the Litvak team, right? Like we get probably 10,000 inquiries a year, rental inquiries a year, right? And our average response time is like 15 minutes or less, right? We we have phone calls with before every single showing to make sure that the potential renter knows what they're coming to. For this time is the most precious asset for everyone. Leonard Steinberg says it. He was actually one of the first ones I said heard it in the context of being a broker, in terms of valuing our most precious asset as an agent is time, right? So instead of wasting clients' time, our time, so I am so proud of the work we do, because it's that type of ownership of the process, ownership of the professional aspect of who we are, that one can make an argument which had a lot to do with the uproar of this conversation, right? Or the perception of certain renters not seeing the value. So I don't want to. We're not. We're our hands aren't clean necessarily on this.
That's right. Well, and it's like I think you're spot on, because in a lot of cases, the renter was paying for not getting a service. Example, if there's a condominium listing, and a renter finds it on their own on StreetEasy, they haven't gotten any service from the broker. The broker is representing the landlord in that case, or the investor. And then I'm a prospective tenant. I go on StreetEasy or Zillow or wherever. I find a listing online by myself. I go see it by myself. I go to apply for it, and if it's a $6,000 or $5,000 apartment, I have to pay a $10,000 commission to rent that apartment, and I have received no service. So it's easy to be frustrated or whatever.
Absolutely.
The unfortunate reality is, now as a consumer, I'm still going to pay that. I'm just going to pay it in the form of rent. The further unfortunate truth is, as a broker's fee, and this is kind of where the savvy renters understood. Actually, a lot of times the savvy renters, the no fee apartments, they would understand there's no fee, but the rent's higher. So if I plan to stay there for 2, 3, 4 years, if I look at it, it was worth it. I'd rather pay the fee and go into a cheaper rent, because over a 4-year period, over 3 years. And so now, again, that option is eliminated. Similar to before, I want to pay 12 months up front so I could try to get a deal, or so that I whatever. Now, so what we've done in some capacity, we've eliminated options. And now we're saying, no, you have to pay the higher rent. You have no choice now. And you do that for the first year. That commission is going to be embedded. But then next year, when it's time for renewal, you're going to get a percentage increase off the already higher. So now it's like you're paying the broker fee over and over again for 3, 4 years in a row.
100%.
Over this thing. And so I don't know what the perfect solution would have been. And I fully agree with you about the level of service our industry is known for, and so I'm not pretending to be smart enough to know the answer. I just know that this is the latest series of past laws, that whatever the intent was in its outcome, the intent got fully lost. And the results are just not what the intention was meant to be.
Yes. And I fantasize about adults being in the room and being able to now look objectively about the impact, right? And say, okay, this is where we're at. And I don't know where this is going. I have no clue. And if anyone says they do, I don't think they lie
about other things too. That's right. That's right. That's really what I say. That's right.
So I have no idea, but I do have a hope that logic and cooler heads will prevail, right? Because it isn't servicing. It's of no service to the renter. It really isn't. We're seeing it. I mean, we have a team of 20. I'm seeing it on a daily basis right now. Like, the agents are coming back and reporting, like the amount of people at the open house, the frenzy because of lack of inventory, the level of stress for the potential renter right now. I haven't seen it, and I mean it's been a long time. So I wouldn't want to be a renter in this market right now, particularly in July. Right now, it's crazy out there.
Well, I'm an optimist, and I think I've met an even greater optimist, because these laws, these rent stabilization laws they passed, I don't see any language of overturning them, even though it hasn't served its purpose. The application fees laws, I don't see any change there. And so maybe with the change of leadership, maybe, but this mayoral nominee wins, he's even more so the future is a little bit uncertain. But what I would say is this, we teach a lot in our team that what's first is mindset. And so everything Steven's saying is spot on. what's predictable is the following. It's predictable that there is a frenzy. It's predictable that there's inventory is going to be more limited. It's predictable that the smaller landlords that can't afford to pay broker's fee are going to try to do things. I hate to use a word like shady, but let's say a word like
well,
creative.
There's going to be shadow inventory that isn't going to be. It's going to be set. The keys are going to be dropped off.
Yeah.
Brokers are going to be picking up keys. It's not going to be listed.
Yeah.
And renters are going to be paying more for that luxury of finding something that's not online.
And that's really critical to understand, because again, if a landlord has not hired the broker, meaning they're qualifying this word hire as there's a signed agreement or there's marketing online. So if I got keys in my office to 50 apartments and those apartments are not online and I don't have a written document with the landlord, and you, the consumer, come to me and say, I say to you, I got these 50 apartments, I'm well within my right to charge you a fee because I don't have something
100%.
signed. So again, we haven't really eliminated. So I think what's predictable is that to the end user, the economic difference isn't really going to shift much. And there's going to be some, it's just going to shift where and how they paid, but the actual end net isn't going to really be that different.
I actually what I would say to that is I think it is different. I actually think it's going to even cost them a little bit more.
That's right. In the renewal years. That's right. That's right.
Not only in the renewal, even up front, because of the frenzy, the scarcity. I think they're paying more than they would have.
That's right.
So just my opinion.
There you go. Well, so lawmakers, next time you want to make a law about rentals, you call this guy first. You get his input.
I was going to say call you.
No, call you, man. You're a head of rentals. I got enough meetings. Let him call you. Call Steven. Hey, Steven, if we do this, what'll happen? Is this a good decision? Is this a bad decision? This guy's got 35 years of well-rounded experience. But what I would say in all seriousness is this. To anyone out there, whether you are any one of the classes we discussed, maybe you're a renter and you're trying to figure out how to navigate this market. Maybe you're an individual condo owner. Maybe it's a rent stabilized building. Maybe whatever it is, we do 300 to 400 rental deals per year in addition to our 5,200 sales. And so, between Steve and I collectively, it's over 50 years of real estate. Between him and I collectively, it's over 100 years for our team. Wherever and however you might need support in navigating these changes and navigating these new markets, there is a legal implication as well with leases. From the last law changes, the speed and length at which you can renew current tenants now had caps. I mean, to be a landlord in this market has become really difficult, and to be a tenant in this market is even more difficult. And so we're here to help. If you just have questions, don't worry about commissions. We're here to help and serve and support and guide. And if you would like representation, great, we could do that too. But it's a really challenging time for New York City real estate. And so we're doing everything on our end to stay up to date. And we're doing a ton of deals, so we're seeing what's going on. And so we're here for you guys. Steven, any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, other than just really grateful for being with you this morning, and wish you and your family and everyone out there just a magical weekend.
Beautiful. Love you, brother. Have a good weekend, everyone.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys.